The murder hornet. Are they really something to worry about? Welcome back to Bug of the Week Part 28, brought to you by Lil Dudes Insect Academy. As always, if you are new here, consider going down there, subscribing, dropping a like, leaving a comment. Lil Dudes Insect Academy is run completely off of donations, so if that's something that you're interested in helping contribute to, we have a lot of things planned in the future, so if you go down and leave a little donation for us, that would be absolutely amazing. But if not, again, leaving a like and subscribing are another free way to help us out. So if you're interested in any of those things, those will all be down below. So 2020 was quite a doozy of a year for many of us for many different reasons. But if you can recall, one of the things people were freaking out about was the Murder Hornet invasion in the western United States. Now, before we get into the actual event of 2020 and moving forward, let's first talk about these fascinating insects themselves. This is Vespa mandarinia, commonly known as the Northern Giant Hornet, or you may know them as the Murder Hornet, and I'll talk a little bit later about the controversy around that name shortly, but let's just refer to them as the Northern Giant Hornet. Existing within the genus of Vespa, this categorizes these insects as something called a true hornet, and not a wasp. So what are the differences between wasps and hornets? For starters, hornets are actually a kind of wasp, so consisting of about 22 species. Now, wasps in general include over 100,000 species, so all hornets are also considered wasps. Now, some of the differences between wasps and hornets is that all hornets are eusocial, meaning that they live in colonies, whereas not all wasps live in colonies. Now, aside from taxonomic classifications, there are some physiological and behavioral differences between wasps and hornets. Hornets are unique in that they have very large heads compared to their bodies, as they are predators, they're carnivorous, so they feed on other insects. These large heads can properly house their large mandibles, which they use for chewing their prey. Most wasps are omnivorous or they're pollinators, so they don't require these large chewing mouthparts. Additionally, hornets often have much larger abdomens compared to wasps, and it's also said that hornets are oftentimes more aggressive than their wasp counterparts. Okay, so now that we have that out of the way, let's go back to the Northern Giant Hornet. Often reaching a length of 2 inches long in adulthood, these hornets are the largest species of wasp, and by extension, also the largest hornet. These hornets are iconic for their orange and jet black coloration in conjunction with their pair of large, slender black wings. These hornets also have an angry-looking head. They're equipped with a large pair of compound eyes, a set of simple eyes, and a set of stalky antennae. Now just look at those intimidating serrated mandibles. They use those to both eat for themselves as well as mush up food for their young brood back at the nest. These hornets are also adorned with long hairs all over their bodies. Native to Japan and Eastern Asian regions, these hornets are an iconic species of Japan. So now let's go back to what happened in 2020. If you recall, amongst all the other things that were happening in 2020, there was a brief panic about the Murder Hornet invasion in the Northwest United States. Now, here's a word from a past podcast episode of mine where I spoke with my friend Dr. Chris Looney all about this.
We got interested in this last year when a specimen of what I think was ultimately identified as Vespa soror, a related species, was found in Vancouver, North Vancouver, British Columbia. So, single adult specimen. No evidence that there's any kind of reproductive activity or anything like that, but it brings up the fact that we are always exposed to species coming in from other countries or even from other parts of our own continent. So, we started thinking about that, planning some responses that we might have if we were to get something here. And then lo and behold, in August in Nanaimo, which is on Vancouver Island, some beekeepers started reporting enormous hornets, which turned out to be Asian giant hornets. They found some and identified them. Not long after, in September, they actually found a nest and eradicated it. There is a totally diverting YouTube video by Conrad Berube, and I think I said his last name right, a beekeeper on Vancouver Island. You should watch it. It's pretty fascinating. So raised the stakes. We proposed an official survey to the federal government. And then in the meantime, in December, a picture started making the rounds on Reddit, and then through the Asian and Invasive Species Council of an actual specimen in Blaine. I was at a meeting somewhere, so I couldn't go check it out. It's one of those things I remember exactly where I was at the time, but my boss was able to. And it verified it. And we learned recently, or not long after that, that a specimen had also been found about a kilometer away by another beekeeper who had observed these doing the hawking behavior where they just kind of attack individual bees. And suddenly our plans for a what if scenario if we found Asian giant hornets in Washington State came in. Oh yeah, it's really here, and now it's time for us to survey and see what we can find. So out of that, it's important for people to remember we only have 2 actual specimens. We don't have evidence of a nest or reproduction. We really don't know if they're established yet or not. And our job is to do a lot of survey, see if we can find evidence of any. And then if we do, try to eradicate them. Really, the goal is to see if they're even here and keep them from spreading if it turns out they are here. But there's no evidence they are anywhere in North America besides our tiny corner of the Pacific Northwest.
If you'd like to listen to the whole episode, you can find a link to that down below in the description. But a side note, that episode was recorded back in 2020, and so some of the information may be a little outdated by now. Like, for instance, even the name of the wasp has changed. It used to be called the Asian Giant Hornet, and now it's the Northern Giant Hornet. So, information is changing all the time. We've actually found more individuals than what he said back then, so some of the information might be a little bit outdated by now. So as Dr. Looney said, only a few individuals were found in the northwesternmost edges of Washington State and up into Canada. And so why was there such a massive media craze over this event if only a few were found? Well, this is where this topic gets a little bit controversial. Although you may know them as the Murder Hornet because that's what everyone's been saying, you may have also noticed that I've only really been referring to them as the Northern Giant Hornet, and that is because this is the proper common name for this species.
So the Murder Hornet name is both hilarious and unfortunate. It wasn't made up by the media. That's an important thing, or at least not the U.S. media to remember. It was told to a reporter from the New York Times by a Japanese researcher who works on these hornets, and you said, "Oh yeah, their nickname in Japan is Murder Hornet." It does create the unfortunate impression that they are a lot more dangerous than they are, and it's no joke. These really can sting people. They really do kill people, even people who aren't allergic. Nobody wants to deal with this, but they're not out to murder people at all, right? They're just flying around doing hornet stuff, eating bugs, taking them back to their nest, that kind of thing. So the murder hornet really exaggerates the human health threat. I've heard some people say well, they really murder honeybees, and yeah, they can be a devastating pest of individual beehives. I'm not really sure that's where that moniker comes from. I kind of got the impression that it was about humans, but even that, they're predaceous hornets. That's what they are. If we want to call them something, we could call them big predator hornets. Instead, we're going to go with Asian giant hornet as our preferred common name, because hopefully it tamps down the hysteria and it's accurate. They're really giant. They are the biggest hornet in the genus, and originally from Asia.
So just the name alone of Murder Hornet was often probably why people were freaking out. They're also the largest wasp in the world. People are often a little bit afraid of wasps, and so this super big wasp invading the US can be a little bit scary. Okay, so a few specimens were found here in Washington State. So what's the big deal? Why is this such a big issue? Well, there are a number of issues surrounding the possible invasive nature of these hornets. Number one being that they could easily adapt to the climate of the western United States, as it is quite similar to the environment of their homeland of Japan. Additionally, their prey of choice is actually the native honeybees in their region, and so a small colony of Northern Giant Hornets can actually completely eradicate a hive of European honeybees in a matter of hours. So you might be asking yourself by now, wait, there are still honeybees in Japan where the hornets are from. So why are they still alive if these hornets are such a clear threat to them? See, Japanese honeybees have a natural defense mechanism against these hornets that the honeybees native to the US simply don't possess. The crazy thing is that the Japanese honeybees actually have a higher heat tolerance than the large hornets. And so when the hornets are attacking, the honeybees swarm around the hornets, form a ball with their bodies and cook the hornet in a ball of buzzing bees. Our native honeybees simply don't have this defense, and so the hornets would essentially have an all-you-can-eat buffet with these bees. Another issue, which is very common with pretty much any invasive species, is that these hornets would have virtually zero natural predators here in the States, and so this means that they have a near endless food supply, as well as no predators to keep them in check. And this would be really bad. Essentially, we would have a repeat of the Burmese python invading Florida situation, which we all know how crazy that is now. A perfect climate, no predators, plenty of prey, equals an uncontrollable explosion in population. In summary, it would be very, very bad if these hornets were able to start reproducing in the United States. So how can we prevent this all from happening? How can we prevent these hornets from settling in the United States? Well, people like Dr. Looney and his team are working tirelessly creating trapping networks, hotlines, and tracking systems in order to capture and eradicate these insects. And this is actually a very common job that entomologists have, is to keep insects exclusively to where they are native and no further. Now, a way that you can help is if you think you've seen one of these hornets, you can actually report it to the WSDA through this page on their website. Now, I could obviously talk about these insects for hours, but we unfortunately do not have that kind of time, so I'm going to have to end it here. If you all enjoyed this episode, go down there, leave a like, subscribe, and a comment. That really helps us out, get that video out there. I hope you all enjoyed this episode just as much as I did making it. The Northern Giant Hornet is absolutely fascinating. They have this crazy social structure, and there's also a lot of controversy surrounding this species. Without further ado, I will see you all next week, but until then, keep on bugging.